Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast, college basketball edition for Wednesday, January 23rd, with our college basketball expert, Brent Crow. Brent, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Drew. How are you?
I'm doing good. We got your 5% CBB top play of the month up at sportsmemo.com. That's the top-rated play and his top-rated play of the entire month of January. You can catch that at sportsmemo.com for $30, and by using the coupon code CROW10 at checkout, you can get it for just $10. That is the special podcast code there. Brent, we got some games we want to break down on tonight's card. We got 8:03, 8:04, 7 o'clock Eastern tip. Tennessee rivalry here. Tennessee, the number one team in the country, heading to Nashville to take on Vanderbilt. There'll be a lot of orange in the stadium there if Tennessee does travel well, but they're having to lay 8.5 on the road. 145.5 the total now, using Sportsmemo's odds screen. That's pretty much across the board. Some 146s out there. But how would you look to bet the Volunteers in Nashville tonight?
Well, it is a sellout in Memorial Gym, and you're right. There'll be a lot of Tennessee fans there. And the money has really come in on Vanderbilt, and I think probably that has to do with the fact that Tennessee is now the number one team in the country. They're on the road. They're playing their rival. I mean, it's a perfect setup to play against Tennessee in that regard, but the lines dropped from 11.5 down to 8.5. Also, the total moving down, as you mentioned, and obviously Tennessee's the better team here. I mean, that goes without saying. They've been great in the SEC. They had their closest game of the year against Alabama on Saturday at home, only a 3-point win. But other than that, they've had double-digit wins in their other 4 SEC games. And Vanderbilt, before the season, Vanderbilt had a lot of hope, but the injury to Darius Garland, who announced yesterday that he's going to go to the NBA, will not be back at Vanderbilt. It just killed Vanderbilt's season, and as a result, 0-5 in SEC play. They cannot score. That's been the biggest problem in conference play. They had 55 in their last home game against Mississippi State. They scored 47 at Rupp Arena last Saturday. I mean, it's just been a struggle for the Commodores to score, and as a result, they've tried to slow it down a little bit. They play more zone defense, and it's a difficult adjustment because with Garland and some of the other players they had before the season, they wanted to run. They wanted to get up and down the court. They started out the season, the first 2 games, he had 79 and 80 possessions, and easy to do with an NBA point guard, but without one, not really the way you want to play. And, they've kind of been handicapped because of that, so they've slowed it down a little bit. I think their best chance against Tennessee also would be to slow it down a little, try to make Tennessee beat them from the perimeter, which Tennessee's certainly capable of doing. But, it's a rivalry game. It's going to be probably this. I think you'll see Vanderbilt's best effort so far this season. Of course, being 0-5 in SEC play kind of guarantees that. Last year, 2 close games. At home, they lost 94-82, and on the road, Tennessee beat them 67-62. But last year's Vanderbilt team, they're probably about at the same level. They finished 12-20 last year, and they may have a better record this year. But as of right now, it's probably about the same team in terms of strength. So that shows you, though, that that despite being 12-20 last year, they played Tennessee tough twice, and I would have definitely taken Vanderbilt at 11.5. 8.5 is getting down there where you don't have as much value. But for the spot as far as the spot goes, can't beat it for Vanderbilt tonight.
Brent, we got 8:05, 8:06 staying in the SEC. Georgia at LSU, 151.5 the total. Looks like the Tigers of LSU laying 11 in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Georgia's really struggled lately. LSU off to a perfect 4-0 start in SEC play, while Georgia's 1-4 in their last couple of games. They only scored 101 total points at home against Kentucky and Florida. But LSU defensively is not Kentucky, and they're not Florida. So I think you're going to see some more points scored by Georgia in this one. The number is 11 and 151, and if I bet this one, it's going to be over the total here. Because LSU likes to run, they like to get up and down the court. They certainly can score. Georgia, with again, their last 2 games, they played probably the best 2 of the top 3 defenses in the SEC, and they've been really limited. It's also been two games where the pace was not very fast. And Georgia likes to get out and run this year, and I think they're way more successful when they're able to do it. And LSU certainly is not going to try to slow this game down. So, I think you'll see a better performance offensively from Georgia. The last time they played on the road against Auburn, they scored 78 in a 93-78 loss. That game flew over the total. And LSU is the highest scoring team in the conference. So I definitely, if I play this one, it's going to be over the total.
In Brent, where are you recording this podcast from?
I'm at home.
And that's in Alabama?
I'm in northern Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, North Alabama.
Okay. No, I can just tell because I'm sure there's listeners out there that kind of hear a little twang in your voice and just wanted to see let them know where you're coming from. But what
I'm in the heart of SEC country.
And is that Birmingham or is that outside of Birmingham or?
I'm around Huntsville.
Okay. And like tonight, watching a pretty big slate here for Wednesday night college basketball card. What does that entail for you on a normal night?
I try to watch. I usually have a couple games on TV, one on the computer that I can't get on TV, and tracking all the scores at the same time. So, and it just depends. I don't necessarily watch games that I have interest in, with as far as wagers go, but sometimes I just watch teams to see, if I've noticed something, a pattern or whatever, notice something that's happening, and I try to watch teams to confirm, are they playing slower, are they playing faster, or what? Because a lot of times you see that in the middle of the season, teams that are playing one way, it's not successful. They if they're playing fast, they scale it back. There are other teams that have trouble scoring. They try to speed it up a little bit, like Rutgers has done lately. And, it's just trying to pick things up that you're not seeing in the box scores, or trying to validate what you're seeing in the box scores with something you actually see on the court.
So you bring up Rutgers. They're playing a little bit faster. How did you notice that?
That I read in a newspaper article, and they were really struggling to score, and so they the coach says we're going to try to speed it up a little bit, take advantage of try to get some easier looks in transition, and they've, since that's happened, they've played some overs, and they still had a game or two that went under, but you could definitely tell that he kind of turned them loose a little bit.
Has that come to fruition? And do you think there's still value betting Rutgers overs?
The problem is the market has adjusted to it a little bit. So I think now you're looking at their matchup more than anything else. I mean, and a lot of totals betting is matchups. I mean, you get two teams that want to go up and down the court. That's better than one team, obviously. And the other thing is, you have to be, it doesn't matter what team's intentions are. They want to play faster. They want to score more. They got to be able to do it against the team they're playing. If you're playing a Michigan State that plays really good defense, and it doesn't matter what you say you want to do, you're not going to be able to do it if you're not as talented.
Right. No, that's a good point. And would you say in most cases, like we just talked Tennessee Vanderbilt, and since Garland's been out, that's one team that I have had a beat on as far as betting them under the total, especially in SEC play. How long do you think that kind of stays under the radar to the sports bettor, where there's value in betting, let's say, a Vanderbilt under or a Rutgers over from the moment that the change happens? Is it usually one game, 1 week, 1 month, the whole season? How long do you say that usually lasts for?
And usually, I would say a few games. I mean, it just depends on, number one, who the team is, and how many people pay attention to, if Tennessee, if Rick Barnes comes out and says he's going to do something, everybody's going to read that. And then, whereas if let's say Mike Dunleavy at Tulane says something, not as many people are going to notice. And the other thing is just the results. I mean, sometimes like with Rutgers, for instance, they were a team that really had trouble scoring. I mean, that was their bugaboo. They just could not score. And so then I think it was before the Maryland game, that Steve Pickell said he wanted to play a little faster, and they had 72 possessions in that one. It went over the total. But, immediately the next game was against Ohio State, and it was bet over the total. And then that one wound up going under. The next two games against Minnesota and Purdue go over. Then the next one went under against Northwestern, and then the Nebraska game and their last one went over. But if you notice, overall it's 4 overs and 2 unders, but the possessions on every game is a lot higher than it was earlier in the season. So it's definitely been something that has translated onto the court. They're definitely playing a little faster. Doesn't mean they can score against Purdue or Northwestern when they score 54 and 57, but they're definitely have increased their number of possessions a little bit over what they had been doing.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. You bring up the second game against Ohio State, and more possessions, but it stayed under. In that scenario, it could almost keep, your advantage, so to speak,
exactly,
a little hidden, right?
Right. Yeah, and if they had done that, and then every game was 150, 150 points scored, after 3 games, then you've lost all the value in that. So, when I find stuff like that, Drew, what I hope is that if I, let's say the total is 150, and I hope if I bet under, it goes to like 148. I don't want it to be 120. I want it to be 148 where nobody notices anything.
Yeah, got to be sneaky with that. I know what you're talking about. What about side-wise? Do you think that there's still advantages in the college basketball market as far as betting sides?
I think there are, but I think you either have to do it one of two ways. You have to play like every advantage that you think you have, which is going to be 10, 20 games a night, and you're hoping to hit 54% at the best, and just or you can really just wait and be very, very, very selective, which is basically what I try to do. Whenever I see something that I really that really stands out, or if I get a really good read on a team, then I'll play those games. But like I said, that doesn't mean I'm trying to look for a side to play every night if I don't have that situation. And I think there's more advantages in playing totals than sides, but there are. Like I said, if you pick up on something, you can play sides as well. But I just try to limit. Or like I said, I'm just looking for certain things to play sides.
Good stuff, Brent. Thanks for sharing with us. And guys, he's got his 5% CBB total of the month, play of the month, up at sportsmemo.com for $30. And with the coupon code, his last name, Crow10, that's CROW10, Crow10 at checkout. You can get it for just $10 at sportsmemo.com. His top play of the month, Crow10 at checkout. 821-822, next game up in the SEC, Brent. Missouri at Arkansas, 142.5 the total. Razorbacks laying 7 at home.
See, and here's something here's a team in Arkansas that I noticed something early in the season, and I haven't really been able to take advantage of it, even though I have been proven right, and that is that Arkansas really can't score against good defenses. I mean, they're so limited offensively. Gafford inside, and then the freshman Isaiah Joe in the outside. Those are basically their two guys. Mason Jones has come on a little bit, but other than that, they don't have anybody that can score in the half court, and they're not as effective as far as forcing turnovers this year. They're only 145th in the country in turnover percentage. So, it's not the 40 minutes of hell, and they're getting out pressing and turning people over and whatever. And so they're really having trouble scoring when they play good defenses. But, they had, since I've noticed this, I really hadn't had that many opportunities to play Arkansas under. In SEC play, they went on the road against Texas A&M. I think I did play that one under, and it wound up going under at 144. The next game at home against Florida was 57-51. Obviously, that one went under. But then they hosted LSU. I didn't play it because of the way LSU plays, and that game went over. I think in regulation, it wound up going over in overtime, but I think it was already over. And then the next time out, they give up 106 on the road against Tennessee. And their last game against Mississippi was 84-67, which also went under. But, and the other thing is that Arkansas is just not very good. They're 1-4 in conference play, and like I said, I haven't been able to take advantage of that as much as I should have. Even though I noticed from watching them early that they really weren't that good. They played a very weak schedule. When they played anybody that played defense at all, they couldn't score. I mean, Georgia Tech beat them at home 69-65 in the middle of December. So, yeah, I still have that thought about Arkansas that they're just not very good. They're not very good offensively, but now they're hosting Missouri. They're laying it's up to 7, which I don't really understand this move from 4.5 to 7 because I'm still under the impression that Arkansas is going to struggle to score when they play a good defense, and Missouri certainly has been capable of playing good defense from time to time, especially in their last 2 games. I mean, they held Texas A&M to 43 in their last one on the road. Prior to that, it was a defensive battle against Alabama, and they wound up on the losing end of that game. I mean, Missouri's not very good themselves, but I think, if I'm right about what I think about Arkansas, you have to play Missouri here plus the points, and you also play it under 142.5. And I would like to have had a 145 or 146 before I bet this one under, but still a little lean to the under here.
So Arkansas, going to our point what we were talking about, you think that there still might be value betting possibly against them, but even more so on their unders?
I do. I mean, because the only reason this total is low because Missouri has a reputation of being slow and playing defense, and they just gave up 43 points in their last game. But I'm looking for places to play Arkansas under the total, no question about that.
Well, when you say low, I mean 142.5 isn't that low, and it's been pushed up. I mean, the opener was 140, so it's been pushed up 2 points. That's interesting, huh?
Right, and Arkansas still, it's not like they've slowed down any. I mean, they're in the SEC play, they're averaging 73 possessions a game, so they're still pushing the pace. And anytime you have the pace like that, I mean, 142 is, if you consider there's 70 possessions in a game or 71 possessions in a game, and both teams score 1 point per possession, then that's 142. So I would, this one's going to be right around there possession wise. But if Arkansas has their way, it's going to be a little higher than that. And Missouri, Conzo Martin's always been a guy that likes to play defense first and play slow and whatever. But there's been times this year when they've gotten, a little faster. I mean, they had 70 possessions on the road against South Carolina the other night. But, he's still – if Missouri has any say in this one, this will be a 65 possession game instead of a 72 like Arkansas would like to do. But like I said, I would definitely – if it keeps – and I may wind up playing it at 142.5, but it's going up, and we're going to see how high it goes before I step in.
Yeah. Good stuff there. Great breakdown on Missouri, Arkansas, Brent. We got a couple games left here, guys. 8-5, 8-6, heading to Bedlam. Oklahoma at Oklahoma State in Stillwater this time. Oklahoma laying pretty much 2.5 across the board now. 134 to 136. Some opinion on this total depending where you're shopping. But Brent, how would you look to bet Bedlam tonight?
These teams played January the 5th, and in that one, Oklahoma got a 74-64 win at home. So now the Cowboys try to hold serve on their home court. This one has had a lot of movement. The total opened at 140. It's basically 136.5 now. And, Oklahoma State has been kind of, I don't know, they've been a team that has not been consistent as far as their totals go in Big 12 play. They're definitely not very good offensively. They played pretty decent defense, but in conference play, they've struggled defensively a little bit. But as far as the tempo goes, they're just, I would call them slow compared to the rest of the Big 12. On the other hand, Oklahoma is fast, but they play really good defense, and their offense in conference play has really struggled. But you also got to take a look at who Oklahoma's played. They're coming off games against Texas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Kansas. So those are your 4 best defensive teams in the league, and then they also played TCU and Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma, to me, is a team that, they want to get up and down the court as best they can. They still play pretty good defense, but if they don't take any time on offense. I mean, they're definitely looking for the first shot available, and they will play as fast as you'll let them for the most part. Oklahoma State, sometimes they play as slow as they can. Other times they're a little faster, but I think in general, they're not as talented offensively as a team like Oklahoma, so it takes them longer to get shots off. But, this one, as the total goes down, I have more interest in playing it over the total. I mean, both teams, right now in conference play, middle of the road defensively. Oklahoma, like I said, nationally, and if you look at the whole season, their defense is pretty good, but lately they've struggled a little bit. They gave up 75 points to Texas the last time out, 74 to Kansas State the game before that in low possession games. So they've struggled a little bit defensively in their last couple. And also, Oklahoma off 2 losses. Again, tough teams that play defense. I think, you're going to see a really good effort from Oklahoma tonight. And, of course, you will from Oklahoma State as well, with it being their arch rival, and they've already lost to them. So it should be a very intense game that may lead to some extra fouls or whatever. And again, I would if this keeps coming down a little bit, I'll look to play it over.
Brent, I think there's actually some value here in the side. I got a couple stats here, reasons I bet the Sooners. Oklahoma is the only school in the country with a win over every major conference. That's all 5 Power 5 conference teams and the Big East. They're also a good rebounding team. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They're 5th in the nation in defensive rebounding, and they've been good on offense, scoring 74 points a game, going up against Oklahoma State, who at home, there's some surprising numbers. They're just 1-7 against the number in their last 8 home games. And they're 2-10 ATS their last 12 games overall. So they haven't been cashing tickets, haven't been covering numbers, and for whatever reason haven't been winning games in Stillwater. At least not cashing tickets in Stillwater. I think there's something to that. I think there's more talent on the Oklahoma side with a short number here. I like Oklahoma. You got any opinion on the side?
Well, like I said, I think you're going to see a good effort from Oklahoma because of the 2 losses. And you also got some turmoil at Oklahoma State. They had to kick 3 players off the team. And talking about Stillwater, I mean, it used to be, back in the days of Big Country and Eddie Sutton, they didn't lose in Stillwater. But what's happened is the crowd support has really dwindled. I mean, they're having trouble. They're not even getting close to selling out. I think that if they have 7,000 there, it's a big crowd now. So for whatever reason, the crowds just aren't coming to Stillwater. And I mean, crowds make a difference. I mean, it's it's different playing in a half-empty gym and a full gym when everybody's hollering and screaming at you and whatever. So I think they've lost some of their home court advantage. There's no doubt about that.
All right, Brent. Well, we got one game left here. We got Brent's 5% play of the month up at sportsmemo.com, and you can get it for just $10. Normally $30. You can get it $10 with the podcast special. That coupon code is CROW10 at checkout. I also got a college basketball total up. We got mid-major Matt up with a play. Also some plays in the NBA as well. All at sportsmemo.com, so check that out for tonight's slate. Brent, last game up here. Let's head to the Big Ten. 827-828, 9 p.m. Eastern tip. Wisconsin at Illinois. Badgers laying 4 on the highway. 138 the total.
Yeah, Wisconsin comes in off a huge win over Michigan in their last game on Saturday. That took them to 4-3 in conference play. And, that's a big win. There's no question about that. So the first thing you think of probably would be, are they going to have a little letdown after knocking off undefeated Michigan? I think the fans stormed the court and all that jazz. And they're playing the Illinois, who is, for the most part, they've been horrible. They're 1-6 in conference play. Last time out, they gave up 95 on the road to Iowa. However, the time before that, they caught Minnesota flat and put up 95 points against Minnesota and just dominated. I mean, they were up 20 at halftime and wound up with a 95-68 win over Minnesota. So that shows you what Illinois is capable of if you don't come ready to play. But the other, the problem with Illinois, for the most part, is they're just not very good defensively. They're 11th in conference play and defense. And, Wisconsin's a team that if you don't play defense well, if you foul a lot, I mean, they will take advantage of you. I mean, the whole question here comes down to, will Wisconsin have a letdown after beating Michigan? And, this is not your typical Wisconsin team from, 3-4 years ago where they were just, they're like a machine. I mean, the last couple seasons, it's been a struggle for Wisconsin. They're still in good, but not great. And I think that's probably what this team is. Although they have talent here. I mean, they had a 20-point win over